Welcome to the Mortification of Spin, the regular podcast of the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals. I'm here with my regular co-host, Todd Pruitt, the pastor of Covenant Presbyterian Church in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And it's also a delight to have, for the first time as our co-host, the delightful Aimee Byrd, also known as the housewife theologian. Now, I like to think of Aimee as the Pat Benatar of Reformed theology. And I also have a rock analogy for Todd, and he's promised that he won't hit me until he hears the explanation of this. But I like to think of Todd Pruitt as the meatloaf of Reformed theology.
I knew it.
No, the reason, it's nothing to do with your dimensions,
yes,
Todd.
Thank you.
But I think that people like to listen to you, but are embarrassed to admit it in public.
So you're saying I'm a guilty pleasure?
That's one way of putting it, yes. A dark secret sin might be another way of thinking about it.
Well, I'm hoping that my new title gives me better music.
Well, I would think so.
Not banjos this time.
I'm going to have to sing Bat Out of Hell or something.
I still think Dead Ringer for Love is, after the St. Matthew's Passion, one of the great moments in Western music.
You have Meatloaf and Mahler just kind of battling it out to see who's going to be the greatest.
My mother told me when the video for that song came on the TV and Cher was there, I think Cher in the video, my mother said to me, "That is the kind of woman you must always promise me to avoid."
Well, I have a good Pat Benatar housewife connection.
Oh.
Yeah, my dad used to always tell me, because he liked Pat Benatar,
sure,
that once she had children, she quit her career to be a mom.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I know, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think Meatloaf quit his career because people stopped buying the records, but that could be.
He would do anything for love.
He would do anything for love, but he won't do that.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Right.
Yes. Anyway, today's topic, we want to talk about Halloween and Christian attitudes to Halloween. It's a topic that comes up every year. It's a topic that can be quite divisive within the church, so we thought it might be not only entertaining but also instructive to bat it around on the Mortification of Spin.
He did the mash. He did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
He did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash.
Now, Todd,
yes.
I know you're a big Halloween man. Any particular
Love it.
costumes that you've worn over the years that stick in your mind?
Well, I think more like it probably stuck in my neighbors' minds. I mean, anything that was spandex, I was most comfortable with. No, I mean, I grew up in a very conservative Christian home, and in Houston, Texas, we did Halloween. My brother and I did Halloween. We would dress up like superheroes and go get free candy. And while we were aware of the fact that there were witches and skeletons hanging around, that sort of thing, it never dawned on us that we might be engaging in something that was wrong or untoward or unchristian. For us, it was about looking like Spider-Man and getting lots of candy.
Yeah, was your experience similar, Aimee? Or
Oh, yeah.
Spider-Man?
No, not Spider-Man so
Catwoman,
much.
I suppose, or-
I think my favorite costume was I was an alien for like 2 years in a row, because
sure.
you could just be totally creative there, you didn't have to,
Absolutely.
outside of the box.
Yeah, good thinking.
And now that I'm a parent, I think that the most important part is, stealing your favorite candy bars out of the bags.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, growing up in Britain, it was interesting that when I was small, Halloween was not a big deal. We have November the 5th, Guy Fawkes Night, when we burn an infamous traitor in effigy each year, unless you come from a particular village. I think it's either in Suffolk or Sussex, where they burn the Pope in effigy each year, commemorating the foiling of a Catholic plot to take over the Houses of Parliament or blow up the Houses of Parliament in the 17th century. And that's somewhat eclipsed Halloween. This is serious business.
I just have to say, is there any debate now why the British are more intelligent than us? I'm talking about Spider-Man and candy, and Carl would be able to give a lesson on Houses of Parliament from his childhood. So that's good. That's good. We're happy for you, Carl.
Remember, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
Well, we burn this traitor Guy Fawkes every year in effigy, and it distracted attention from Halloween. But I would say in the last 20, 25 years, there's been a creeping American influence, and that trick-or-treating has become a much more significant part of British party culture, for want of a better term. And it's raised the question, of course, to what extent is this pandering to an interest in the occult, forces of darkness, forces of evil? We know as Christians that although Christ has decisively defeated these powers, the prince of the air, etc., etc., we also know that this world is a spiritual battleground, that though the victory is assured, it is not yet fully consummated. And therefore it is a serious question. Is indulging in something like Halloween, is it dancing with the devil, if you like? Is it dabbling in something that could actually subvert or undermine the witness of the church?
Right. Yeah, and that's the question that I struggle with, because I don't, on the one hand, I want to be able to say to my brothers and sisters who see it in very, very stark terms, it's very, very wrong. I want to be able to say, oh, lighten up. But I don't really have a text of scripture to back that up, not that we always have to. And yet at the same time, I want to explore this notion of, is there an equivalency to participating in Halloween with, say, bringing a Ouija board into your home or going to see someone to read tarot cards? Perhaps there might be. I'm now a bit torn, Carl. Now you've messed up my entire plans.
Like the church plays or whatever, or VBS, sometimes I get kind of annoyed at the whole cheesiness factor, and people get dressed up in their biblical costumes, and I just think, I just don't like these images before me right now. It's really reducing the greatness of God, and that's what I think of with Halloween, is we're kind of mocking these things. It's cheesy. It's a costume. I don't believe it's indulging in spiritual darkness, and I don't think it's the same as bringing in a Ouija board or going to see a fortune teller.
Right. And besides, with the biblical costumes, I could never tell Moses and Noah apart. So that's my biggest problem.
Noah's the one with the hammer, I think, generally speaking. So what you're saying, Aimee, is that actually the celebration of Halloween could be a mocking of the impotence of the powers of darkness in the light of the work of Christ. Yeah, that's an interesting take that I'd not heard before. Todd, do you have any reflections on that?
Well, my first reflection is that Aimee has more courage than I do, because I refuse to stake out a position. And so now I'm feeling very, very ashamed that she was very quick to
You're in the PCA. We don't expect you to stake out a position, buddy.
Yeah, I think it's very legitimate what Aimee says. I mean, I have no problem. My conscience is not seared at all by having allowed my kids to participate in trick-or-treat when they were younger. I have no problem at all handing out candy at my front door. In fact, I'd feel kind of bad if I didn't do it. I would feel like I wasn't being a very good neighbor. My struggle is my brothers and sisters whose conscience is seared on that issue. Should my position be to try to help them see that there's liberty there, or is it legitimate for them to be concerned for some of the very questions you raised earlier? We were talking before we started recording about the fact that, Halloween in Harrisonburg, Virginia, where I live, is a very different matter than, say, Halloween somewhere in the San Francisco Bay Area. If I lived in the Bay Area, I may, for a whole host of reasons, say we can't participate in Halloween. And I don't think that's a cop-out. I think that geographically sometimes the issue becomes very, very different. But I know, for me at least, my conscience is not seared at all by handing out candy and by having let my children trick-or-treat.
Yeah, and you raise an interesting point there, one of contextualization. And contextualization, I think, is a massively overdone phrase. That there is a universality to human nature and a universality to the gospel that naturally, automatically limits the importance of context to a certain extent. But having said that, particularly on issues of cultural signals, I think contextualization can be important. It's not directly touching on Halloween, but I'm thinking, for example, of Paul's teaching on the way women should dress in 1 Timothy. They're not to have braided hair or pearl earrings. I preached on that a couple of years ago, and it's always risky to preach on a passage like that because there are a number of women in the congregation who have braided hair and pearl earrings. When you do some digging around that text, you find, of course, that what Paul is alluding to there is the dress code of these professional, up-and-coming, proto-feminist kind of women in the ancient Roman world who were promiscuous in their sexual morality and advertised their status through wearing certain things, pearl earrings, having braided hair. And I don't think Paul is saying there it's sinful for a woman to have pearl earrings. I think he's saying it's sinful for a woman to dress in a way that the culture will interpret as indicating promiscuous sexual availability. Bring that to bear on the Halloween issue. I think you raise an important point. What does Halloween mean in my particular context, in my particular town, in my particular state? I can imagine a situation where, as the pastor of a church, one would want to say, members of this church should not celebrate Halloween because you're sending a signal there that you're part of a promiscuous community, or you're part of a gay community, or something like this. So I do think the contextual aspect is important. Do you have any thoughts on that, either of you?
Well, we were talking earlier, and a friend of ours, her husband grew up in the Bay Area, and his whole response to Halloween is quite understandably revulsion because of all that it is associated with, as you can imagine what it would be associated with in the San Francisco Bay Area. And had I grown up in that context, I'm sure I'd feel the exact same way. And I think Christians in that cultural milieu may very well be under an obligation to say, we cannot publicly associate with this activity because of what it has become. In a way that somebody in Harrisonburg, Virginia may not even have any idea of. So I guarantee the citizens of Harrisonburg, Virginia, do not see Halloween as primarily a celebration of homosexuality, but in some areas that's exactly what it is, or whatever else it might be connected to. Aimee, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was talking to the two of you about how I'm far less concerned about the scary, gory Halloween costumes as I am about the whole new sexual culture that has been introduced to Halloween. And it's even hard to bring my children now into a Walmart and shop for Halloween costumes because a lot of them are sexual in nature, and I totally don't get that. But I'm thinking contextually as well, being invited as an adult to a Halloween party, that would probably be an instance where I would choose not to go because, depending, I guess, on who's giving the party, but and who's attending, you will know that, there's going to be more of a sexual nature to the costumes. So that would be, even in our area, an issue where the context could change.
Right.
Halloween.
I think a lot of this points to the fact that we're always looking for easy answers. There is a tendency to a kind of legalism within all of us that we want instructions that make every decision we come across to be an easy one. But often, it's an overused phrase, but often these things are wisdom issues. One sits under the consistent preaching of the word week by week, and one trusts that the Holy Spirit will use that to cultivate Christian character incrementally. And as part of that cultivation of Christian character, we develop the faculty of wisdom for dealing with these kind of things. I mean, another related issue that perhaps we could touch on at this point, it's not such a burning issue now, but it was maybe 5-10 years ago, is should you allow your kids to read Harry Potter books? And it always struck me as fascinating that Christians were concerned, or many Christians were concerned about children reading Harry Potter books, who were not so concerned about them reading C.S. Lewis's fantasies or Tolkien's fantasies because Lewis and Tolkien were Christians. The fact that they too dealt with supernatural themes, they dealt with worlds of goblins and elves and demonic kind of presences, was seen to be sanctified just by the fact that, hey, these guys happened to go to church on Sunday and took it seriously. We never, as parents, my wife and I never imposed that sort of censorship on our children's reading. My oldest son read Harry Potter. My youngest son, who is a Tolkien snob, refused to read Harry Potter, but only because he regarded it as radically mediocre compared to Tolkien. But we didn't impose rules on that, and yet found ourselves frequently the odd people out in any gathered room of Christian parents at that time. And it was becoming, I don't want to trivialize it, but it was becoming the equivalent to me of vegetarianism. I don't want to offend any vegetarians out there, particularly any Reformed Baptist vegetarians. But we all know vegetarians who are so blinking righteous.
Yes.
Because they're vegetarians. They treat other people like dirt.
The proper term now is plant-based diet.
Yeah.
These plant-based dietitarians, these vegetarians, not all vegetarians are only insensitive to the plant-based diet community out there. But some vegetarians can be very self-righteous, and all they do is they don't eat meat.
Yeah.
But then they turn it into a burger.
Exactly. And I carry bacon in my pocket. So.
But it becomes a form of what I would describe as meaningless righteousness. I'm better than you are because I don't eat meat. I treat my employees like dirt. I never speak to my neighbors, but I don't eat meat, and therefore I'm better than you.
And I don't let my kids read Harry Potter.
I don't let my kids read Harry Potter. Therefore, somehow I'm a more faithful Christian than you are. And, as you might have guessed from my tone of voice, I find that slightly jarring, if I could put it very mildly. Yeah. What do you think about that?
I agree completely, and I was sort of astonished by the amount of heat generated over the Harry Potter issue among Christians. But I think it had a bandwagon effect. Evangelicals are notorious suckers for bandwagons, and this became a thing for us to grab hold of, and I don't think a lot of people were doing it consciously, but I think a lot of this happens on the subconscious level, where it becomes a thing whereby I can measure my goodness. And again, I would never put it that way in my own mind. I would never allow myself to think that way consciously. But that's what I'm grasping for, this way for me to very much, and our own self-imposed laws do that for me. It gives me a way to know that I'm doing better than you are. And this is one of the reasons why legalism is so dangerous, and why adding to God's law our own inventions is so dangerous, because it is a surefire way for me to become a self-righteous legalist. And I'm afraid that we could do that in the whole discussion over Halloween. If we take it beyond those categories that we've already discussed it in, certain contexts, it would probably be very inappropriate. Aimee, I couldn't agree more. I'm not going to go to an adult Halloween party. For one thing, I think it would be really goofy, which is what offends me the most.
Go dressed as Meatloaf.
Exactly. I could go dressed up as Meatloaf. That is true.
You could go as you are, and people would think you're Meatloaf.
Yeah, lots of scarves tied around me, that kind of thing. But
this isn't a costume idea.
Right, exactly. I mean, that would be, what's most offensive about an adult Halloween party is that it's just nerdy. But I'm just afraid that what adults would end up doing with it could be inappropriate. For me as a kid, it was about getting free candy. For my boys and my girl when they were younger, the idea of the demonic and evil wouldn't have even crossed their minds. They're out getting free candy and getting back to the house so they can dump it on the kitchen table and fight about it. However, I can guarantee in other areas of the country, I'd have to say, sons, daughter, we're just not going to be able to participate in this because of what's going on out there. But beyond that, if I'm going to establish a law and say that in West Virginia or Virginia, you've got to treat this the same way we might if we're in another part of the country, I'm really bothered by the potential of going there. It smacks too much of legalism to me.
Yeah, sometimes I think we strain at gnats and swallow camels as well.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to say to parents of children, do you allow your kids to watch commercials? What's a commercial doing? A commercial is, generally speaking, promoting materialism. If you buy this product or you obtain this thing, your life will be fulfilled. You'll be happy. You'll find a perfection to your humanity that you currently lack.
Yeah.
Well, that seems to me just as insidious, if not more so.
More.
I can say to my kids, you can read Harry Potter and it's a story. It doesn't have any extra textual referentiality, to use the sort of pompous language.
You mean your sons didn't go out and buy a magic wand and expect it to work?
No, they nor did they commit any human sacrifices, as far as I know. But it's, we strain at the obvious stuff, and it's the insidious stuff that is shaping hearts and minds without us even knowing it. That's so deadly.
And we're feeling safe all the while.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I guarantee the images that my kids have seen over the years on television, through commercials, have been far more damaging to them than anything they ever saw when they were getting candy at people's homes on October 31st.
Yeah.
And speaking of the gnat and the camel, all this discussion just made me think of the obvious sin that we aren't even thinking about in Halloween is that of gluttony.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking of meatloaf.
Yeah, exactly. I just had 2 servings of apple crisp.
But I was just, amazed at how my children put limits on what they ate, because, they'll go out there with the pillowcases. The pumpkins aren't big enough. They want to get as much candy as they can. But, they had a couple things and they walked away. And I remember calling my brother and sister up, because I'm the oldest, and being like, man, it seems like we ate like half our candy the first night. Did we have less candy, or am I remembering this wrong? But
see, when we
2 Butterfingers and I'm about dead now.
You see, it reminds me of, I would have been regarded as one of the most unpleasant people to do trick-or-treating. When we were in Britain, I remember the kids would knock on the door and I would open the door and say, "Do I know you?" And if I didn't know them, I would say, "Well, go away," and shut the door.
I would figure that Truman's house would be the scariest house to go to at Halloween.
That would
Not
be the
just
candy that
at
the parents
Halloween.
take out of the bag,
Exactly.
You know the movie where the house that always has the thunderstorm behind it is being lit up? That was
there
my
you go.
house.
Oh, outstanding. Well, and of course we could always recommend just the, an old-fashioned thing to do with your families instead of sending your kids out. Have a movie night. We always watch The Exorcist, and so.
Yeah, I think there's a new version of Salem's Lot or Carrie coming out.
Oh, Carrie. Yeah, exactly. Sure. Yeah, gather up the kids and go to that. But
to take this in another sort of direction that many of our regular listeners will be very familiar with, of course, I think it also connects to what the church is and the nature of the church's confession. That as pastor of a Presbyterian church, and I'm sure this applies to pastors of confessional Baptist churches as well.
I'm sure it does.
But as the pastor of a confessional church, your powers are limited by the confession. The confession summarizes those parts of the Bible that are considered to be universally applicable within your congregation. And I don't think it's my job as a pastor to stand up in the pulpit and say to people on a Sunday, "Do not handle, do not touch. I'm going to judge you by your observations of new moon festivals." And that's not my job. My job is to preach the gospel and to trust that cultivates, I said earlier, wise, moral, intellectual habits. It is not my job as pastor to micromanage the lives of the people. It is not my job as pastor to produce a set of rules by which every complicated issue that a member of the congregation is faced with, they look up the rule and simply apply it. My job is to expound and apply the word and to trust that the Holy Spirit will, if I can use a phrase like this, give people the sanctified common sense to handle the challenges of everyday life in a biblical manner.
Right. Yeah, that's been one of the real refreshing things now in my transition over to the PCA is one of the things I noticed immediately as I began studying the Westminster Confession of Faith and the Book of Church Order was this priority placed on the fact that there were very strict boundaries around me as a pastor not to bind the consciences of people, that my power, so to speak, is strictly declarative and that it must only reflect that which is insisted on in the Scriptures, and that we are spoken to very clearly in our confession and in our Book of Church Order that we are not to exercise power over people and to establish new laws to bind their conscience. And that's really liberating in a lot of ways.
Yeah, for pastor and for people.
Absolutely.
I mean, people think that confessions are there to allow the pastor to bully the people. Actually, they're there to prevent the pastor becoming a cult leader in the most extreme examples.
Exactly. And I would also add that lots and lots of Reformed Baptists avoid that as well.
Yes, absolutely. We love the Reformed Baptists. Can't keep stressing that enough. You're lovely people and are very welcome to listen to the podcast and offer constructive criticism thereafter.
Yes, indeed.
Well, and I think that sometimes congregants have a hard time. They want the pastor to tell them what to do sometimes in areas where he shouldn't tell them what to do.
That's absolutely true.
Because it's easier for them. And, pastorally shepherding your flock, you have to guide us to go in the hard direction. Sometimes, we make mistakes even, and grace is there. But the spiritual maturity issue and the hard issues, they're hard.
Mm-hmm. Yep. To say you're going to just need to exercise some wisdom here that's informed with Scripture. I don't have a law to give you here, so I'm not going to, because it would be wrong for me to do that. But you're just going to need to apply wisdom that God promises to supply us with. And
that you're bringing us back there to the doctrine of God. We have a gracious and merciful God. We have not got a God who's going to strike us dead with lightning when we get it wrong on occasion. Right. We use our wisdom to the best we can, and we trust God for the rest, if you like.
Indeed. Well, this concludes the very spooky episode of Mortification of Spin. We hope that it has been helpful to you. It's been fun to spend this time with you. And please check out our website. Check out the website of the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals. We believe in the ministry of the Alliance. We think they do great work, and very thankful for them for their support of this podcast. So, for Carl Trueman and for Aimee Byrd, I am Todd Pruitt. Thank you again so much for listening in, and we will see you next time.
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
He did the mash.
It caught on in a flash.
He did the mash.
He did the monster mash. From my laboratory in the castle east to the master bedroom where the vampires feast. The ghouls all came from their humble abode to get a jolt from my electrode.
They did the mash.
They did the monster mash.
The monster mash.
It was a graveyard smash.
They did the mash.